of the most historic neighborhoods in New York City. It is home to many amazing historical sites and figures. Throughout time, Harlem has diversified and become home to many different ethnic enclaves, but in the late 19th century and early 20th century, African Americans emerged as the dominant demographic. They brought a distinct culture that distinguished Harlem as a place for social rebirth of African Americans. Through this tour, we will show you some of the most historical sites in Harlem that were built in the late 19th century and early 20th century.
Hey, so Harlem is 4 miles long, and today we're going to cover about 1 mile of it.
We're here at Abyssinian Baptist Church, located on 138th and Malcolm X, so let's get started.
Abyssinian Baptist Church, currently located in Harlem, was founded in 1808 when a group of Black parishioners left the First Baptist Church of New York due to the imposition of racially segregated seating. Reverend Thomas Paul, an African American minister from Boston, Massachusetts, assisted the group consisting of African Americans and Ethiopian immigrants in establishing a church. The group named the new church Abyssinian after Abyssinia, an ancient name of Ethiopia. Abyssinian Baptist Church became the first African American Baptist church in the state of New York, with the Reverend John Van Vessler serving as the congregation's first pastor. Abyssinian Baptist Church experienced rapid growth with its gospel of social justice and its mission of community empowerment. It has become a pillar of the African American community for over 206 years. The church continued to provide for the needy during the Great Depression era and extended its religious and social justice programs to include international outreach. Reverend Adam Clayton Powell Jr. brought national celebrity to Abyssinian after his election to Congress, where he was the first African American to represent Harlem, the 22nd District of New York, in 1944. Reverend Powell Jr. continued his duties as pastor while serving as an outspoken proponent of laws promoting equal rights during his 14-year tenure in Congress. Under Powell, Abyssinian also organized and participated in the civil rights activism to highlight discrimination in jobs and housing. In 1965, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was invited as a guest speaker for Abyssinian's 157th church anniversary.
So now we're walking to our second site, St. Philip's Episcopal Church.
It's on 134th Street. We thought it was on 124th Street, so now we're walking the 10 blocks all the way back.
St. Philip's Episcopal Church was the first African American parish in New York City. It was built in 1819 with its first rector, Reverend Peter Williams Jr., serving from 1826 to 1840. He was a leading abolitionist and the first African American Episcopal rector in New York City. Free African Americans and slaves alike had been gathering for a century and eventually named themselves the Free African Church of St. Philip. The building was moved in 1886 after there were 2 attempts made to destroy it by irate whites and New York City police trying to use the church as a barracks. It was officially rebuilt in 1910 in its current location, Neo-Gothic style, designed by Verner Woodson Tandy and George Washington Foster. Today, St. Philip still holds services every Sunday during the year and holds many connections with organizations like the Cemetery for African American New Yorkers, the Female Assistance Society, and the St. Christopher's Club for Teenage Boys. It also holds connections with many other programs that address the needs in Harlem's community.
Heading to our third site, which is the Amsterdam News Building, and it's on 126th.
It's one of the oldest African American newspapers in the United States.
The New York Amsterdam News is an American weekly newspaper geared towards African American community of New York City. It is one of the oldest African American newspapers in the United States. The first edition was released by James H. Anderson on December 4th, 1909. It was made with 6 pieces of paper, a pencil, and a singular $10 investment. Anderson started selling copies from his home on West 65th Street for 2 cents each, naming it after the avenue he lived on. Success of the paper grew during the Great Migration from the South, and it moved up to 135th Street. The paper struggled until about 1935, when it was purchased by Dr. Celian Bethan Powell and Dr. Philip Savory, who were both Black entrepreneurs. The paper started covering both local stories and national stories, including the Montgomery bus boycott and countless other events during the Civil Rights Movement. Today, the Amsterdam News is still the only black newspaper to be unionized in all departments by the Newspaper Guild of New York Local 3. It serves a growing multiracial and ethnic community, still a voice for black communities across the country and the world.
Here's the Apollo Theater. It's probably one of the most visible sites in Harlem.
It's known for its amazing performances and artists, which are shown on the plaques on the outside.
Let's check it out.
It was once said that the Apollo has played a major role in the emergence of jazz, swing, bebop, R&B, gospel, blues, and soul, all quintessentially American music genres. The Apollo Theater first opened in 1914 and had its first amateur night contest in 1934. Many talented African American performers got their start at this theater, including Ella Fitzgerald, James Brown, and Stevie Wonder. It was a neoclassical structure designed by George Keister and first owned by Benjamin Hertig and Harry Seaman. They named it Hertig and Seaman's New Burlesque Theater in 1914 and enforced a strict white-only policy. It hosted lavish burlesque shows that geared towards entertaining wealthy white audiences until 1928, when the theater fell into disrepair and was purchased by Sidney Cohen, the owner of many other theaters in the area. He renamed it the Apollo Theater and opened the doors to black people in the area starting in 1934. During the 1930s, the Apollo Theater became the premier showplace for live entertainment in Harlem, employing the largest black theatrical workers in the U.S. and being the only theater in New York City hiring African Americans in backstage positions. The Apollo Theater became a pillar in Harlem, celebrating rising African American talent and culture. It still stands today as a historical landmark where people can find entertainment in Harlem and celebrate the rich history of African American talent and pride.
Playhouse, our final location.
Let's check it out.
Woo!
Minton's Playhouse was a jazz club, originally founded in 1938 by Henry Minton, a tenor saxophonist during the 1930s. It is credited as the birthplace of bebop and was where many famous jazz musicians such as Thelonious Monk, Dizzy Gillespie, and Charlie Parker pioneered a new type of music. The club originally became popular through Minton himself, as his popularity and the knowledge of musicians' needs made the club a favorite spot for musicians to hang. Also, Minton's ties to the Union meant that the musicians who played there would not be fined for their participation in the club. The club's popularity continued to rise with the addition of Teddy Hill as a new manager for the club, as he used his ties to the Apollo Theater to get bands who played there to play at Minton's as well. During Hill's time as manager, Monday Celebrity Nights became a popular feature at the club, with performers from the Apollo Theater going to Minton's after a long week of work. These events were known for their food and for the trumpet duels between Dizzy Gillespie and his mentor, Roy Eldridge. Minton's is still open today, playing jazz and serving great food. It will always be remembered and associated with the swing style of bebop.